Careblazers, I am so excited to introduce a very special guest for you today here on the channel. Her name is Martha Brown. She is one of my care course members, and she is an amazing Careblazer. And today we are going to be focusing on a topic that I think will be helpful for so many of you, and it's how do we enjoy our loved ones more, especially when they might do some things that really get under our skin or we wish they wouldn't do. So that's what we're going to focus on today. Martha, welcome to the program. I'm honored to have you here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Natali. I'm happy to help and to be here and share my journey through this process. And I think that what you can offer to anyone out there that's assuming responsibility for helping with a loved one with dementia, that the lessons taught here are very beneficial and contribute in a positive way to what you do and how you care for yourself in the care of your loved one with dementia. So thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm excited, and I'm excited to talk about this topic. Before we dive in, can you introduce yourself briefly and who you care for?
My name is Martha Brown, and I care for my mother, who is 91. She does live in a memory care facility in the next town, not too far away, a 20-minute drive. She lives in a care facility that my dad and she bought into when they retired and lived independently for quite a few years. And then this is a progressive facility, so she did go to assisted living, and now she is in the memory care portion. And she was one of the first 3 members that bought into the original project. Unfortunately, it was soon after my father had died. So I have to say that part of my journey through this is the comfort I get in the fact that my mom and dad thought long and hard about how they wanted to spend their retirement years. And they did quite a bit of traveling and enjoyed a good life until my father got sick and passed away. But they also planned ahead for their aging. And even today, with my mother's dementia, she always says to me, I never wanted this to happen, but I'm glad that we made the choice to set up some kind of assistance in our older years so that the kids aren't responsible for doing the really hard work. So I consider myself very fortunate compared to a lot of careblazers and people caring with loved ones with dementia, because my parents thought long and hard ahead of time and had the financial means in order to accomplish this for themselves when they didn't have an anticipation of this happening to my mom with her dementia developing to what it is today. I consider myself very fortunate compared to a lot of careblazers. For the most part, time that I can spend with my mom is I try to make it really more quality, although I do assume responsibility for her medical care and her financial care and so forth. So I am her DPOA. Time I spend with her can be just visiting in her apartment or taking her on a ride or certainly going to the doctor's office, things like that.
I think that's fantastic of your parents. And yeah, I don't think the majority of people have that experience where their parents have planned in so much detail of making sure their needs are met. So that's lovely. But I imagine even though they did this preparation and she is in a care facility, that there are still things that you do and have to look after and care for and things you experience as a caregiver to her. Can you talk a little bit about what types of things you still do for her, even though she is in a care facility?
Well, I usually go to see her at least every other day because in my mind, I'm concerned that she will overlook things or not recognize that things need to be attended to, or she'll call me and say she can't find something and she doesn't have something. Would I go to the store and buy it for her? And I know it's there. So I just kind of go over there to put her clean laundry away, even though she says, oh, I can take care of that. Well, probably not. So I think as the type of dementia that she has, which is I would categorize in the Alzheimer regime, she does not have any short-term memory. And so she obsesses a lot on things that in a person that was really aware of what was going around, that I would expect them to act on it or I would be concerned about it. So one of the things regarding my mom is that I'm a retired nurse and I tend to be very clued into every little complaint that she has. And so I have spent considerable amount of time chasing down solutions to what I think are problems that in her world, she may talk about them, but they may not really be problems that they might be in my world. For example, she says she has a sore throat. Well, she says she's had a sore throat for a year. We saw her primary a couple weeks ago. She looked at her throat. It was fine. She has some throat lozenges. So if I can remind her where they are or that she can use those, it's that type of thing. I've kind of gotten to the point where I feel like I've done my due diligence to really investigate to make sure that it's not something harmful or potentially dangerous to her health. I'm still struggling with totally letting it go, but I may not go over there every day to make sure that she knows where her cough drops are. I may put a couple at her bedside table, and when she calls me, I say, well, remember, I left some cough drops by your bedside table, so you can use those, and when I come over, I'll put some more out. Or tell the caregivers where they are in her apartment, so if she asks for them, I can say, well, call the caregiver and ask them to get you a couple more cough drops. And it's been a particularly trying 6 months because she's had some chronic issues that have really caused her, I'm sure, some discomfort. And so the physician's recommendation and her desire are not exactly aligned sometimes. So I really perfected my little white lie sometimes in order to change the subject or talk about something else if I felt like I've done the investigation that needs to be done to determine whether or not it's really a problem.
Yeah, no, I love that you spoke to that because I think sometimes people think that when their loved one goes into a care facility, or even for long distance caregivers or people caring for a loved one with dementia, but they don't live in the same home, I think sometimes people think there's not a lot of challenges or not a lot of things caregivers have to do, but caregivers do a lot, even when their loved one is in a care facility or living somewhere else, because you're the one fielding the phone calls. You're trying to make sense of what is actually happening versus what they're saying is happening. You're coordinating all their healthcare appointments, their financial situation. So it's not like everything gets better and goes away when your loved one is placed in a facility. Like there's still so much that you're juggling.
Well, and it makes me sad too. Part of the reason that I go see her so often is that I think of it as kind of enrichment for her day to day because she doesn't remember to follow the daily activities on her calendar. I mean, we can talk about them, we can put a circle around them, we can write them on a whiteboard, and then totally forgets about them. And so that makes me sad. But what I've kind of learned, kind of a rude awakening for me, but when we saw her primary physician a couple months ago, I mean, my mother isn't really, I mean, she has no comorbidity. She takes some medicines for her memory, but other than that, she really doesn't have much going on. And so when something comes up, I sort of jump on it because I worry about it. But her physician said to me, and I don't know if she sensed that I was kind of obsessing on some of these issues that were really non-issues, but she said to me, let me know when you're interested in me recommending her for a different level of care like hospice. And I was shocked. I thought, hospice? Well, she's not ready for hospice. But it gave me pause to think that maybe what she was saying was that chill out. Don't worry so much about these things until there seems to be something really significant to worry about. And that probably has helped me more than anything to just think in that light that she's comfortable sitting on her couch all day watching the news and doing her Sudoku book. And I'm not going to spaz out that she hasn't gone over to play bingo in the activity room. Is that something that she wants to do? And that I don't make it so much of my mission anymore to make sure that she's entertained, because at this point in her mind, she is entertained. Now, her entertainment may not be my entertainment, but I need to respect that. And that for both of us, it's probably better for me to just back off of some of that and take the good times as they come, but not worry about the other things.
This is so important. I love that you went here. I'm really curious. Before you kind of came to this place of just realizing her entertainment looks differently than you maybe would like, what were your visits like before? What were you trying to do with her before? What were you maybe like trying to force her to do before you came to this place of accepting?
My mother was a special ed teacher, and she had a master's degree, and she doesn't know what day it is, but she can sit down and do her Sudoku book backwards and forwards. And I'm thinking, and this is sort of funny. She says she had lost her Rubik's Cube. And I thought, Rubik's Cube? When did you have a Rubik's Cube? So I went and bought her a Rubik's Cube. And my brother, in his funny way, he says, well, just let her move it all around and then change all the stickers so everything is the same on each side. I think my visits with her, I take advantage of what I thought might help her to remember things. Like I did put up the whiteboard. We did get a couple calendars. She has one in her purse. But the more it's gone by, the more I realize that she does remember important things, like she has a doctor's appointment next week. But if they're showing the movie Singing in the Rain this afternoon, and she'll say at 10 o'clock in the morning she'd like to go to that, and at 3:30 when it's over, she remembers that she wanted to go to that. So I think that I really tried previously to kind of orchestrate her activities and make sure, in my mind, I thought she was entertained, but really in my mind, I was the one that was entertained more than she was entertained. So she reads the newspaper and she looks at all the books, the bestseller books. She has a list of books for me every time I go over there, the books that she wants. And it's like that movie 50 First Dates, where I think she's read the first chapter of one book 10 times. And so sometimes I get her the book and I give her a book, and sometimes she reads or pretends to read it or says she's reading it, and most of the time I read it, and that's fine. So not expecting her, in my mind, to engage as much in some of the activities that I think she should.
What did you notice about the quality of your visits with your mom when you made the switch from trying to get her to do your version of what you think would be good activities for her to when you made the switch of like just letting her do her version of activities, even if it wasn't what you thought maybe would be the greatest thing for her? Like, how did the quality of your visits with her change?
Well, I think it's interesting because it significantly reduced my stress or I don't have an agenda or a plan when I go to see her all the time now. I mean, maybe something like I'm going to take her to a doctor's appointment, but I don't go over there thinking, well, I'm going to clean out her underwear drawers. I just go over there and enjoy my time with her. And she wants to sit and watch the news, and we'll sit and watch the news or talk about family. We make phone calls sometimes to family members, and really probably it's changed more for me, perhaps, than it's changed for her, because I don't get so irritated and annoyed that she won't engage with some of the stuff that I think she should engage with, because she really doesn't want to. And she had a fall a couple days ago, which wasn't significant. She slipped out of bed or didn't have her walker close by. And so they wanted to start physical therapy again. And I sort of, at this point, the physical therapy probably isn't going to significantly change her physical strength or abilities necessarily, because we've done it before and nothing has really changed. So I kind of thought, why bother? And then I thought, well, it'll be an activity for her to do a couple days a week, and that's fine. I don't think of it anymore as being an important part of her recovery, because it's probably not going to really change that, but it may help with breaking up her day a little bit. I almost said don't do it or don't bother, but I thought, well, we'll try it and see. Physical therapist gets there and she's still in her pajamas, then that's the way it is.
How did you get to a place where it seems like you're more accepting what is with your mom, going with the flow? You're not coming in with your specific agenda, and you're not also trying to force every little thing happening. I think a lot of times caregivers might think that's giving up or not doing enough. And I know that's not the case with you, because you actually do, like, you're listening to your mom's physical complaints, you're following up with things. Like, how do you get to the place where you're just okay with what is? And can you talk about how that actually isn't giving up in your situation? Perhaps for another caregiver who's like struggling with themselves, like, how much do I push? How much do I fight? How much do I try to get them to do something? And how much do I just like actually enjoy the presence of my loved one without that pressure?
Well, and I think that is one thing that evolving experience has really taught me, is that your stress or my stress is not going to change the situation and the evolution of the disease process. That my intervening may be thought of as being able to change something, but I've come to the realization that I'm not going to change anything. And that if I can just enjoy the time that I have with my mom and keep her relatively safe and comfortable, then I feel that my job is done. I have noticed over the period of time that I've done my previous running around like a chicken with my head cut off trying to fix stuff that it doesn't make any difference. And you really learn patience, because I've learned over a few things that are happened medical wise. I have really learned that, I'm the type of person that likes to fix something and have it taken care of. But with this disease, you have to let that go, because what I've really learned over a few medical problems that she's had in the past is that you can't fix them right away, and that you just have to be patient and wait out. And sometimes they go away, sometimes they don't, or sometimes they change to something else, and sometimes they don't. That's kind of at the top of the heap for me, that I just don't worry about being able to fix things right away. I can come up with a couple of suggestions or ideas, but if they don't change things right away, I don't worry about that I may not obsess on doing the same behavior over and over again to change something, because it may or may not change.
Now, I imagine there are Careblazers listening to this thinking, I would love to get to that place where I am no longer running like a chicken with my head cut off, responding to every little thing. I can't even enjoy the time and visit I have with my loved one because I'm so focused on all these other things. How did you get to that place?
I think that it was partly because I was starting to feel like I was not addressing some parts in my life, because I was spending so much time doing what I thought problem solving for my mom, to a point where I was neglecting some other things that I could have been working on in my own life, and that I knew that she wouldn't want that. She wouldn't want me to neglect what I was doing for my family and myself, and doing things for her that in her mind she really didn't need them to be taken care of. And it's funny, because my sister-in-law has a mom with dementia, and she and I have had many, many, many discussions about caring for our moms. And it's funny, because a lot of the times the things that I've learned from your program I share with her, but she's gotten to the point where she maybe only sees her mom twice a week now. She's in the same situation in another time in another town, in a facility, and her mom is a little more mobile and certainly more social, and so she feels comfortable just letting her go to her exercise class, because she will take the initiative to do that, where my mom won't. But there was a time that I was saying to her, you gotta let it go, you gotta back off, you gotta just let it go. And she has 9 brothers and sisters, and so she's in a different situation, because she has a lot more siblings that she's dealing with in this whole path. So I kind of took my own advice that I would always give her, to let things go and just let it roll off, and go over to mom's and put bird food in the bird feeder outside her window, and go for a walk and sit on the patio in the sun, but not scurry around the apartment scrubbing stains out of the carpet or something. That's just not worth it.
I love this. Thank you for sharing, because I think it allows Careblazers to start thinking about things differently, in terms of you can still be so loving and you can be an amazing caregiver to your loved one without having to do all the things. And in fact, by making that decision and making that switch, you actually get to enjoy your loved one more and spend more quality time with them.
I was going to say, yeah, if I don't go over there with an agenda to do something, I think I went over there yesterday and we just sat on the couch and looked through the newspaper and talked. And I thought, well, we haven't done that for a long time. And I felt good when I left. Like, I didn't feel like I was remiss because I hadn't done something I should have done while I was there, but it was just the quality of the time that we spent together. And while I was going to put it in one of the sheets that you have about the activity book that she and I do, and she loves that. We'll just sit there for a half an hour and turn the page and go on to the next one. So in my mind, it's improved the quality of time that I spend with her.
I imagine too, if we were somehow able to ask your mom or know her experience, I imagine she enjoys having you around more with this version than than before?
Perhaps. Time will tell. We haven't quite experienced it enough, but my decision to make that change, knowing what I know, that probably I can't solve everything, and that if I can just make sure she's safe and comfortable, that's the best I can do, and that just enjoy the quality of the time that we have together doing quality things. It could just be walking out and sitting by the fireplace or something like that. So
I love this.
it's making
for
me feel
sharing.
better.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. In closing, is there anything you'd like to say to any of the caregivers right now who are watching this? Any biggest tip, biggest piece of support, anything at all you'd like to leave in closing?
Well, I think probably based on this conversation, the biggest tip that I can say now for my own situation. Now, this is very different in other people's situations, and I certainly wouldn't totally respect the way that their situation is different from mine. But probably the biggest aha for now is just the point of learning enough to know that this too will pass, and probably go on to something else, but just let it roll and don't worry about it as long as you feel comfortable that you've done what you need to do to make sure that she's safe and healthy. Then just don't worry about finding things to do. You just go over there and sit and talk for an hour. For me, that's just as important as it was for me to organize her linen cabinet or something. So just enjoy the time you have.
Yes, I love that. And thank you. And I do have a follow-up question based on what you just said. Are there ever any times when you just go over there and you're like, I'm just going to sit and we're going to have a conversation, but she doesn't seem to really engage in conversation back? Do you ever have those experiences? And then how do you work through that?
No, I haven't. She is one of those people with dementia that if she was in a crowd with a group of people, you wouldn't have a clue. I mean, she carries on very nice conversations. In fact, it's frustrating sometimes because she complained to me about something that's bothering her. And we go to the doctor to check it out, and the doctor says, well, tell me about this. And she says, oh, I don't have that. Oh, that doesn't bother me. And it just is so frustrating to me because I'm thinking, I have heard this story 5,000 times, and now you're telling the doctor it doesn't even happen. So from that, if I just go and sit and we just chat, then, we may chat about the same thing 10 times, but that's okay. She doesn't have the expectation that I do anything for her, and so it's perfectly fine with her. She enjoys the time that I'll just come and sit. It's like a visit,
Yes.
Instead of me coming to do something, it's just a visit to say, hi, how you doing? And we both enjoy that.
I love that. I know it's not perfect and you still struggle from time to time, but you've really mastered the art of just letting it go. When something is happening that it's frustrating and you can't change, it's like practicing letting it go.
But the facility where she lives, once a month, they have community forum, where that's done by Zoom. And it's usually the memory care coordinator and the activities coordinator and, the food, the dietary coordinator and so forth. And we didn't have our last meeting because they had a power outage. So that was an issue. But during this meeting, which was postponed, they had a fire drill. So all of the administrators had to run out of this meeting and to the fire drills. 4 or 5 of us that had family members in the memory care unit were sitting there together, and I thought, poor group. So I thought, I'm not letting this one go. So I said, has anybody ever been bothered by the fact that the font on the name tags for their names is about a 12 font? You can't see it until you're a foot away from their face. I don't know what their role is. I don't know what their name is. And it was a kind of a good opportunity, and all of them said, yeah, I've been thinking the same thing. And so the next day, there they all were sitting around with label makers, putting their new names on their name tags. And I was so glad of that because I just thought that it would help either other family members that came to visit or the residents to do something like that. So to your point about hoping at some point in time we will have sort of a standard of care where people that care for people in dementia or in memory care facilities have knowledge, because to me that seems so basic.
Right.
And that I would really love to see something like that, that we wouldn't just provide care or support or safety for people, which is really important, but that we would also understand the disease better so that
Yeah.
we can care for people in a different way.
And I love that. It's like a bonus tip. It's like a balance. It's like letting go of the things you actually want to let go of because you know it does not help. It actually hurts you, but actually bringing up things that could lead to a positive change, as simple as making the name tags bigger on the staff at the care facility. That's wonderful. It's beautiful. It just takes like a suggestion and then the positive change can happen. So as a bonus tip, I love what you're saying here is like bring things up and advocate when you think it would be beneficial for you or for the people at the facility. So thank you for sharing that. That's a really cool story and a quick fix.
I was impressed, and I was, I didn't want the director to think that I was being a pain in the neck or anything, but she was like totally on it. Like it didn't even dawn on her that might, and I'm thinking, really? So anyway,
Sometimes when this is true for not only, I think, like staff at a care facility, but even for caregivers, it's just for any human being in anything. When you're so close to something, you miss the forest for the trees. That was probably something that didn't dawn on them. But once they realize it, they're like, oh my gosh, So sometimes too, when you've been to our live Q&As and support groups, somebody will say something to somebody else and it's like, oh my gosh, why didn't I think of that? It was right in front of my face. It's like, because it's right in front of your face, we missed it. I had a situation yesterday where I have a flyer for some local clinics here that they can hand to caregivers that are really stressed out. And I had one of my workers take a look at the flyer yesterday for the first time. She goes, it doesn't even say Dementia Careblazers. It doesn't say your name. Nobody could find you. I'm like, oh yeah, I was just trying to help them with like do's and don'ts. I didn't even think like they should probably know where this is coming from. It's like sometimes like you're just too close to see. So I love that. Martha, thank you so much for not only coming here and sharing this information for so many caregivers to learn and to benefit from and realize they're not alone and that it's okay to make changes and not do all the things. But thank you so much for being such a valuable, insightful, supportive member inside of the care course to everybody in there for everything you do in there. So I really appreciate having you as part of this community.
Well, I certainly enjoy it, and I am so thankful that I got introduced to it through your Facebook, through having you on Facebook. I thought, holy cow, who is this gal? And so that really was probably the first source that I had seen that really was able to teach me the information. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. And I love the support groups. I love the Q&A. I always learn. It makes me thankful lots of times that I'm in a different situation, but I think we all find answers to questions that we have from time to time. So it's very valuable for that. I just want to thank you for everything that you do for everybody. And I think that it's great that you are thinking about the bigger picture and that it's perfectly obvious to me that this is not a business. I used to tell people when I was doing my nursing, if I could work for free and support myself, I would do it because you just have a passion for it and you just enjoy sharing your knowledge with people to hopefully improve their lives.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we certainly love having you in the program. And thank you so much again for coming on and sharing. Careblazers, I hope you have enjoyed hearing Martha's story. I hope you're able to take away some nuggets and sending all of you love. Take care. Bye. Also, Nico gets a belly rub for every person who subscribes from this video. So if you haven't already, click the red subscribe button. It's totally free. And Nico says, thank you very much.